So let's begin with the first question. What hits harder? The question here is whether a flail weapon with the same mass and almost the same material hits harder than a staff. Both weapons should of course be as similar as possible in this experiment, in terms of shape and weight. The only difference is that the flail has a moving part, or in other words, has a pivot at the top. Does the flail's top part accelerate more than the tip of a rigid rod, and does the top part have enough mass to do more damage? In order to answer these questions a little better and to see whether there are also practical external influence in addition to the theoretical, purely physical question, this small experiment was carried out. The experimental setup is simple. I placed a 5 kg clay block on a wooden board between two piles of mats. Now I hit alternately with a staff and a flail, and we check the visual effect on the clay mass. Admittedly, it's not the most precise experimental setup, but if there are big differences in the damage pattern, these will become visible. In the first impact test I used, let's say, moderate force. I tried to use equal power with both weapons. The first hit with the staff left a very deep imprint. Only the rear end of the clay block is still a bit thicker because I didn't hit the block perfectly straight. Now with the flail. Here I hit the block straight and evenly so that the rear end of the block was cut through better than with the staff. But overall the imprint isn't really deeper. The hollow is just more evenly distributed. Now a second test. I tried to hit as powerfully as possible with the whole body. Here I didn't hit the middle with the staff. This made it easier to displace the clay, but the submerge is still really enormous. Now the flail with full force. As you can see, the top part didn't hit the target optimally, although the flail staff was swung in exactly the same way as a straight staff. The clay block was also hit a little towards the side, which in this case is good for a comparison to the previous hit. But the angle of incidence of the top part was not optimal. It seems that it could not straighten itself out in time due to the centrifugal force. In fact, something different was the case. The striking part even seems to oscillate within the circular path, as this individual shots show. Let's try a third time. Once again, the staff cuts deep into the clay. The block is cut through. And now with the flail. Here the damage pattern is identical to the staff. Same force as before in the second hit, this time with greater effect. The oscillation curve seems to have been larger this time. The head did not have time to swing back. Or in other words, the head didn't swing back and forth this time and hit exactly at the point of impact in a parallel manner. I performed more impact tests like these, all with similar results. Overall I can say that the staff causes similar damage to a flail and that the impact is about the same. However, the flail has a higher error rate when it comes to the optimal angle of attack. This is difficult to influence and one is therefore exposed to a certain random error rate. The top part is set into a pendulum motion, so it's sometimes a little faster and sometimes a little slower than the guiding staff in the direction of the target. Thereby the angle of incidence is constantly changing. I would say, however, that even in the most unfavorable case, a good 2/3 of the unfolded power hits the target. Of course, such striking heads can be spiced up with nails and iron reinforcements. This way you can compensate for the error rate, but the same is also possible with a rigid cutting weapon. The effect would be higher here too. The difference between the weapons would thus remain basically the same. In short, the impact force of both weapons is similar, but the flail has unfavorable chaotic properties. That's why the staff scores for me here in terms of power.